you like audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description.
Welcome to MINDSHOCK. This is Bruce McGuire.
And Maxwell Powers.
And tonight, we are delving into the paranormal. We are going to go over police officer encounters with the paranormal. The scariest, spookiest, and most haunting ghost encounters from cops themselves. What do you think about that, Maxwell? Does that lend more or less credibility to these encounters?
Probably more.
In the eyes of a layperson, it probably would be more, because I guess they would think that a police officer might not want the stigma or the criticism of reporting any kind of ghost or paranormal activity, because they're supposed to be in some kind of official capacity, whereas some random nobody, they might be doing it for attention or making it up. They have less to lose, where a police officer, they value their credibility, most people would say. As always, if you like the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. Make sure you allow your device to let those notifications come through. If you like the podcast, hit the like button. Feel free to share it across social media platforms. Also, you can follow and like our Facebook page for exclusive updates, and you can check us out Twitter, Reddit, and Patreon. Just check the description. Any questions, comments, thoughts, theories, or your own paranormal encounters, leave them in the comments section. All right, Maxwell, have you previously heard of any law enforcement encounters with paranormal, or no?
No?
I know law enforcement and government officials, their accounts are usually viewed as more credible by the layperson, but it's particular in the UFO field. Because there were several UFO encounters and UFO cases where police officers were literally chasing UFOs in the sky, and they reported it, and they didn't hide it. So some people found those more credible. They couldn't sweep those under the rug to appease their cognitive dissonance quite so much as a random nobody. All right, so we're going to go over the best and most frightening accounts, the most credible accounts from a few different sources. Right now, we're going to start with the Occult Museum, and this is theoccultmuseum.com. Think about it. Who would make a better witness than a cop? Police officers are trained observers. They venture into the unknown every day. So it's hardly surprising that some of the best paranormal experiences we've ever heard are from members of law enforcement. Here are 10 of the most chilling ghost stories shared by the men and women in blue. 1. The Key Holder. Myself and a buddy on my squad responded to an alarm. The incident location was an old office-type building that had been converted to doctor's offices. There was a pharmacy attached to it. Our dispatch received a motion signal from an upstairs office. Keyholder arrives on scene, and we go in to secure the building. The stairs were locked behind a door that, of course, the keyholder didn't have keys to. So we took the elevator up to the second floor. Not the most tactically sound option, I know. Elevator opens to a pitch black hallway, except for one overhead light at the end of the hall. We start checking doors, and so far all are secured. We get to the last office, and sure enough, the door's unlocked. We make entry and observe it to be an unused office. The door opened to a sizable waiting room and reception area. There were about 10 or 12 exam rooms, all cleared with no hiccups. We exit the office, and immediately something seems off. That is when I realized the overhead light at our end of the hallway that had been on was now off, replaced by another light over the elevators. I look at my squad mate, and he is completely white. I ask him what is wrong, and he says, "Weren't all those doors we just checked closed and locked?" I tell him, "Yay." So my buddy says, "Well, now they're all standing open." Sure enough, all the offices down the hallway we had just checked were now standing open. pucker factor sinks in at this point. Would that freak you out, Maxwell, if you just cleared a building and all the doors were locked? You turn around, you turn back around, and now they're all open and the lights are different?
Yeah, that would bug me out.
You got your night light on right now, or is this too terrifying for you, Maxwell, like with the Shadow People podcast?
And I got my nightlight on.
Okay, cool. So we start clearing offices and securing offices. We finish the last office, and on our way out, just before we turn the corner to get into the waiting area, the main door just slams shut. Then our radios start going nuts with some kind of static feedback. Now I just want to get the hell out of there. We get back in the elevator and head down to the first floor to make contact with the key holder again. However, key holder is nowhere to be found. I contact dispatch and request a callback number for the key holder so I can advise him of what we found. Dispatch states that the key holder was still en route to us and was advising an ETA of 5 minutes. I advised dispatch that we had already been out with the key holder. Dispatch requests I give them a call. I call dispatch and she tells me there is no way we were out there with a key holder. She states that the alarm company had only just made contact with one. Eventually, the real key holder arrives on scene and I ask her about the man that had let us into the building, the first key holder. She asks me to describe him, so I did. She states that it sounds like one of the doctors that used to lease the office on the second floor at the end of the hall. She then states that he had committed suicide at his summer home several days ago. I still won't go back there. How do you like that one, Maxwell?
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of scary.
So we have a police officer and their partner too. So we have two police officers corroborating each other on this story. So it's not just one. And dispatch and the dispatch records and the second key holder.
Yeah, that's a lot of people.
Unless that original key holder was someone as of yet unidentified. Well, they said that it looked like, if it looked like that guy, then it was that guy. But I mean, what are the possibilities here if it's not paranormal? Is there somebody who just happens to look like the guy that committed suicide a few days ago and he just happens to show up with the keys because he saw the police there? But then again, he would have had to have seen the police arriving and it had to have nothing to do with dispatch. And he would have had to have a key. No thoughts, Maxwell?
No, just trying to listen.
Maxwell Army, good thing you're doing a podcast. The listeners are here to listen. You're here to give your very astute and wise thoughts and analysis.
But I was just thinking about the cops. Did they go on, like, you know how they make reports and stuff? Like, did they go on record for their town with that, or did they?
Well,
are these reports on, like, to a reporter or something?
I don't know. There's no information here on the occultmuseum.com about exactly how these reports were given. I mean, we're going to go into Reddit reports too of just people who are claiming to be police officers and they're giving their reports. I'm not sure to what level they were verified, but you just gave me a thought. They would have had to have put up some kind of a police report or notation of what had happened. So there should be a record of this. So I'm not sure what you're alleging, that they didn't want to go officially on record to state that, because they wouldn't have to, because all they would have to put down is that they cleared the building and nobody was there, right? They could have put strange activity, doors locking or unlocking, and I guess a normal person would probably say, oh, there's probably something wrong with the locks. They didn't stay, or something like that, right? Nobody would say, oh, there was a ghost in there.
Yeah, I got you.
So, all right, let's go to the next one. The abandoned hospital. So that's ominous right off the bat. A few years back, prior to being a sworn law enforcement officer, I worked as a security guard at a hospital. Sounds cool, and it was, except for the fact that it was 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. I worked alone, and the hospital I guarded was abandoned. Would that be a job that you would accept, Maxwell?
Yes. Yeah. No.
A year prior, the hospital built a brand new facility to replace their 5-story tall 1900s building. When the employees and patients left, they left everything in place. It looked like the people just disappeared in a hurry. Partially full of coffee mugs, uniforms hanging on coat racks, wheelchairs in the halls, everything as it was with a good coating of dust. I was always a third shift kind of person. I don't get night jitters or scare easily, but this place could do it to the best of them. Every night I would walk or ride a wheelchair through the halls that were supposed to be empty and unused. Every night I would end up having to close doors and relock them. I don't know how long I'd be able to do that job. What do you think? You just lock a door and then it's open again? That's weird.
That's kind of messed up. That just has to happen once and I'm out because I don't know if that would happen.
I think I might last twice, but that's about it. Okay.
Yeah, but by the way, that's the most common story that I hear. I've heard it from my brother's friends. It's always doors opening, like, you know what I mean? Like they leave and then the doors are open. That's like the most common thing I hear.
Do they live in a haunted house or something?
Well, I don't know. They left that house.
Okay. Was that a wise move? Because
Yeah,
is that why they left it?
no, because it's messed up. Because like they would shower. All the cabinets are closed, and then when they get out of the shower, all the doors are open, and like all the cabinets are open, but the door remained locked. So like, and they would have visitors come. They would have visitors come over, and then they would come down. Like they didn't even put their shirt on. They just go on a dining table and start eating with their shirt off and all wet and shit, and they're all white and like I don't know. It's just this is the stories that I hear. So
Okay. So, but is that why they left the house? Because of all this weird activity?
oh yeah. They left it. They completely believe that it's completely haunted.
How
So
long did they stay there?
I'm not sure, but it's happened to the owners, and then I don't know. They eventually sold it because they just couldn't stand it anymore.
Did they ever find out if anybody was killed in the house or anything like that?
No, I don't think they went to that much research. They didn't bother.
They were
It was
just
just
out.
it was
Okay.
just like a I don't know, and they always had this sense of like I don't know this weird feeling in the house. You know what I mean? Like I don't know, it's a weird feeling, and plus the doors. That's
That all start like day one when they moved in? Or did it take like a week or
um.
two?
And I have to ask more about this. I really it was just like a quick talk about like ghosts and stuff. So like
Yeah.
I just remember their friend came over. They took a shower, and then they came running downstairs with their with their they're still wet and shit, and they just went on a dining table and started eating, and then they were like, "What's the matter?" And he was like, "No, I don't know, nothing." He just couldn't talk. I don't know.
Okay, so every night I would end up having to close doors, relock them. I would walk one floor, move up to the next, and continue on. I got a little shaky when an hour after already walking a hallway, I would have to turn off the same hall lights and close the same doors again in the building. So it didn't even last an hour. That's pretty creepy. Oh man, that's rough. Because then you can't, if it was like the next day, you could be thinking maybe you have maximal memory and maybe did you really lock it or did you really not lock it? But if it doesn't even last an hour, that's rough. Okay. Or when I would be walking a hall and then I would hear footsteps on the floor above me, doors opening and closing, elevators moving from floor to floor, phones ringing, nurse call lights going on, etc.
Man, how long did this guy stay on the job for?
I don't know. I mean, we'll see by the end of the account. But
Dude, it only takes one of those for me to get out of there, dude.
well, he said he doesn't scare easily. So like, who knows what he was thinking? But that is kind of weird. So he's going to be so basically everything in terms of sounds and lights, everything is operating as if the hospital is operating. There's just no actual physical people there. That's what his account is saying here. There were only 3 times I got the I hate this expletive feeling. First time I was checking offices on the 4th floor. There was a light on in a locked hallway. No surprise. This hallway hadn't been renovated since the place was built, short of electricity, so everything was from the 1920s. Unlock the door, flip the lights, walk out, relock the door, and then turn to leave. Behind me, I hear the flip of a light switch. Through the frosted glass, I see the lights went back on. I left the hallway alone that night, so he didn't bother going in to shut it all off. But wait, what's creepier? The lights going on or off, or you actually hearing the light switch get flipped on, but there's nobody there?
That sound would creep me the fuck out. Like that, I would. Oh my god, I would run, dude. I would like.
That's really creepy. That's bizarre. Yeah, usually in most accounts, I don't know if I remember people actually reporting that they heard the flip switch. Usually it's just strange light activity or doors being already opened or closed or unlocked. I don't recall actually people hearing the switches flip. All right, second time was riding an elevator between floors. I was taking the elevator to the top floor when, at about the fourth or fifth floor, I hear laughing and muffled talking. It gets louder as it got higher. Elevator makes it to the fifth floor, doors swing open, absolute silence. Of course, every light was on the floor, even in the patient rooms. I check high and low, not a single living and breathing person in the place except for me. What's scarier though? If you're in an abandoned hospital and you find all the lights off or all the lights on, is it scarier to find all the lights on knowing that nobody could have turned them on? Or is it scarier if the place is just dark and creepy?
The dark and creepy would. Yeah, I don't know.
It's weird too, right? Especially if these ghosts are demonic, don't demons not like light? So it seems like a lot of these ghost stories where there's light activity, are they just playing with someone? So if these are interdimensional entities, like we've discussed in other podcasts, and they're kind of just playing because they want to get your attention, kind of like an animal playing with another animal, or just a curiosity, sort of one entity to another entity. Are they trying to get the human's attention, and this is just a weird game?
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. I think it would creep me out if all the lights are on and they all turned off. That would be the worst combination.
I don't know, because if there's like a problem with the circuitry, I don't know. It's weird because that's why the sound of a light switch being flipped, that's not a problem with circuitry. If lights are flickering or randomly turning on or off, that could theoretically be explained by circuit issues. I don't know what could explain a physical switch flipping without anybody flipping it. That's just weird, especially if it's at some old place. I don't know. It's pretty weird. Okay, third and worst of all was just an average night. I'm on the lower level locking a door in a corridor. The door had a glass middle, but on the backside it was covered by white tape. The room it led to was dark, and the hallway a few feet behind me was partially lit. So the glass acted like a perfect mirror. Everything normal, key in, lock clicks, turning the key. When behind me I see the full outline of a person walk past me in the hallway. Clear as day, just a full shadow of a person walk past. I just froze for about a second, and then I ran into the hall after the supposed person. No one, just silence. Awesome gig, but after a year, so he worked there for longer than a year, Maxwell.
Wow, that's crazy.
So awesome gig, but after a year, it felt like I should have been an exorcist with all this stuff happening. The other guards that worked on the days opposite to mine had the same stuff happen, except they always saw nuns walking into rooms just outside of an old rectory chapel on the third floor. Better nuns than something else, I guess. So that's kind of weird. So it's not just him. There are other security guards report similar activity. Now he did not report ever seeing those nuns, but he said the other people did. That's weird. Okay, so any final thoughts on that account, Maxwell?
Um, I don't know. I'm impressed with the year employment thing.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Because he said it was standard for just doors to become unlocked, lights to come back on, and he would have to shut them off and relock, like sometimes after just an hour. That's a lot of work, man. If you have to redo everything every hour, that's a ton of work. I hope he got paid well. All right, the third account. Did you see Grandma? When I was a municipal cop, I was sent to a missing person runaway juvenile call. The town I worked in was inner city and poor, but it was one of the better streets in town, and the family was squared away. The husband and wife were both educators. While I was taking the report of their runaway teenage daughter in the family's living room, an older daughter who was in the room pointed toward a hallway and yelled, "Grandma." The husband ran into the hallway yelling, "Mama." The husband returned to the living room and asked, "Officer, did you see her? Did you see my mother?" I told him I had not and asked him why it was remarkable that his mother had walked down the hallway. The husband replied, "She died last year. We see her walking around the house all the time." I took the rest of the report while standing on the front porch. So that was enough to get this officer to just move from their living room to the front porch. Is that weird, Maxwell?
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
I mean, this account's not that remarkable. It would be more remarkable if the officer had seen the grandma. Because then that would be convenient, right? Because if you're claiming you saw something, oh, by the way, there was a police officer in our house at the time that also saw it. Like that leads a certain credibility, right? All right.
Yeah.
Fourth account, The Eyes That Watch. Oh, that sounds like a horror novel. I work for a tribal police department, and believe me, the spirits here can get to you. There is a section of Florida Road between Dade and Collier counties known as the Western Camps. Dade Collier Airport is located here. Anyway, while on midnight shift, I was patrolling this area and called an area check. My radio worked absolutely fine. Just then, that commercial for the movie Fourth Kind played on my FM radio. I immediately became spooked. Have you seen that movie, The Fourth Kind?
I think so. Is that the UFO film, right? They made it like they made it seem like a documentary, but it wasn't.
Yes, to a degree. Yeah, it was a creepy movie. I think I saw it when it first came out. I don't remember it too well, but I remember being relatively freaked out, and it was based on a true story, I believe, which made it even freakier.
I don't think it was. I thought it was I don't know. They made it seem like I had to. It's something that you watch and then you have to research it to see if it's true, and none of it was true. I think it was completely fictional.
As part of the marketing campaign, they used fake stories, but here are the real stories. So this is on topsecretwriters.com. This was published May 2012. The real story behind Nome, Alaska missing people. The Fourth Kind is an American science fiction thriller that was released in 2009. Set in Nome, Alaska, the story is based on the mysterious disappearances of 24 people in Nome from the 60s to 2004. According to Box Office Mojo, The Fourth Kind was a box office hit, making $47.46 million worldwide from an estimated $10 million budget. Despite enjoying considerable box office success, The Fourth Kind was panned by critics, with some deeming it has been insensitive to the families of the missing victims. In an analysis of The Fourth Kind, Rotten Tomatoes, a website devoted to reviews, information, and film news, summed the film up as follows: while it boasts a handful of shocks, The Fourth Kind is hokey and clumsy and makes its close encounters seem eerily mundane. I would disagree with that. I mean, I'm not easily freaked out, and I thought this was a relatively freaky movie. Maybe it makes a difference if you watch it in the middle of the night versus during the day, but I don't know.
Well, wait, let me ask you this: when you saw it, did you s- did you see it as a documentary, or what was your mindset on it?
Oh no. I actually didn't even think when I first saw it. I don't really remember. I'm having a Maxwell moment. I'm pretty sure I didn't think. I'm pretty sure I viewed it as a fictional horror movie, and then when I looked it up online, I found that supposedly it was based on truth after I watched it, not before.
Mine was a little bit different because I was trying to figure it out. I'm not sure how I started. I think I didn't see it in the movie, so that was a lot. So when I first saw it, I was trying to figure out if it was a real documentary or it was like fictional, like
Oh,
what's
I knew it was. Oh, I knew it wasn't a real document. I knew it was a fictional movie. I
yeah,
just thought they were.
I didn't. So it
Oh,
was weird for me. So like when I started seeing all this phenomena happening, like like I was like, wait, there's no way that was actually what happened. Like this would be like worldwide news. Like it would be, you know what I mean? Like it would be a I don't know. It would be proof of uh that thing. So I don't know. It was just so I was skeptical and I had to look it up, and then just I was kind of disappointed that they made it seem like a real documentary when it
I
really
didn't.
wasn't.
I didn't get that impression at all. I didn't think they were trying to make it look real. It looked to me like it was a fictional movie using a fictional plot device as being like a pseudo documentary. And then only after I watched it and I looked it up, and it supposedly that's when I saw some of the marketing things. I was like, wait a second, this is, I mean, that was really creepy. I wanted to know more about it because I think it had, what does it say? At the beginning, it said it was based on true events or something. I never took it literally that anything filmed was real. It was only after so I thought from some of the marketing afterwards, after I watched it, I looked it up and I was like, wait a second, did they really use these psychoanalysts' tapes or whatever? Are these real tapes? And then that was part of the marketing scheme. But either way, it was a creepy movie. And it made you think a little bit. And it made me look up other similar cases where there were recorded therapy sessions where similar things were heard. I don't think any of them were filmed, but there were audio sessions that were very similar to what was depicted in the film. That's what makes it creepy. But let me finish this article. Nome, Alaska, missing people, truth versus fiction. The true part of the story is as follows. In 2005, FBI homicide detectives did in fact investigate the mysterious disappearance of 24 people that had taken place in Nome between the 1960s and 2004, which caused locals to initially think there was a serial killer involved. According to the Anchorage Daily News, most of the victims were Native men who had traveled to Nome from surrounding villages. The FBI determined that there was no real reason to suspect a serial killer and instead came up with the explanation that, quote, excessive alcohol consumption and a harsh winter climate, end quote, were to blame for the disappearances. I mean, that's kind of silly, though, because if that were the case, why not any of these other towns had anywhere near this rate of disappearance? I mean, it doesn't, that's kind of a illogical explanation. But anyway, however, the fourth kind is based on a conspiracy theory from the movie producers as to why those people went missing from Nome and that they were actually abducted by aliens. The footage in the film that shows hypnotherapy sessions taking place between Dr. Abigail Tyler, played by Mila Jovovich, and the patients who claimed they had been abducted. The movie was dubbed as being, quote, the most disturbing evidence of alien abduction ever documented, end quote. Between the FBI dismissing the no missing people's case as being due to excessive alcohol consumption and a harsh winter, the movie producers cashing in on the story by producing a fabricated tale about alien abduction, it is hardly surprising that the families of those who had disappeared are upset about the lack of closure. UFO sightings in Nome, Alaska. Being located on the very edge of the continent, local UFO watchers feel a special kinship with Nome. And according to Huliq.com, Huliq, there are regular UFO sightings in the Nome region throughout the year, with ufologists thinking this may be a region for a sort of command center for alien life on Earth. Despite the so-called UFO sightings that regularly take place in Nome, Proof that the alien explanation behind the known missing people was fabricated was made in 2009 when Universal Pictures, the company that made The Fourth Kind, had to pay a settlement for creating fake news accounts to promote the so-called documentary film. A report made by Fox News stated that Universal Pictures agreed to $20,000 to the Alaska Press Club to settle complaints that fake news archives were used to promote the film. According to the report, Universal Pictures had created a series of fabricated online news articles to promote the alien abduction movie, and the articles posted had the appearance of coming from real Alaska newspapers. Although in this day and age, some people would argue that there's really no difference, right, with fake news. These fake news reports included an obituary and news story allegedly taken from the Fairbanks Daily News Miner about the death of one of the movie's leading characters, Dr. William Tyler. Besides being forced to pay $20,000 in compensation, Universal was also required to remove the fake news articles from the internet. The problem at that point is that the damage had already been done. The originals had gone viral, and there were many thousands of believers that continued to believe the story was real, even though the fake evidence had been removed from the internet. You know what's weird though? I mean, a lot of this is logically fallacious though, because just because you fabricate evidence doesn't mean that something isn't true. Same thing with Bigfoot. If people are making fake Bigfoot videos, does that mean Bigfoot doesn't exist? If you make fake cat videos in your backyard, does that mean that cats don't exist? I mean, I'm not saying they do. It's just, I always find it so silly when everybody falls for these black and white fallacies that if something is faked, that must mean it can't be true. All that means is that that particular thing was fake. But anyway, the real Nome, Alaska missing persons cases. So, with the alien abduction story behind disappearances being a proved fabrication, I mean, here's the thing though. I mean, alien abductions are theorized in a lot of cases. I mean, I'm not saying there's any proof behind them, but if a ton of people go missing somewhere, especially somewhere with UFO sightings, I'm sure that was brought up as a theory. And movie producers wanting to make something, make a movie about it to cash in. I mean, that doesn't seem as outlandish as this article is making it out to be. So, what's the real story behind the missing people of Nome? In an article published in the LA Times titled Alaska, Land of the Lost, Alaska is described as follows: in its rugged, lonely vastness, there are so many ways and places for people to disappear, so many reasons the missing are never found. According to the article in 2004, 3,323 people were reported missing in the state of Alaska, far higher than anywhere else in the country. Since police began recording the numbers in 1988, wow, they only started reporting in 1988? Do you find that strange, Maxwell? I mean, really? 1988? That's pretty recent. They have received at least 60,700 reports of missing people in Alaska. But if you were aliens looking to abduct people, wouldn't you abduct them from Alaska and not from a highly populated city like New York or LA, Chicago? I mean, it's kind of, a lot of these so-called debunks are very fallacious because if you are an alien looking to abduct people, why would you do it where there would be more people would see you, especially if you're trying to be stealth-like about it? Because if they weren't trying to be stealth-like about it, obviously they would just start abducting people in Times Square or on the White House lawn or whatever, where it would be obvious. So they're trying to be stealth-like. So wouldn't Alaska be a good place to abduct people?
Yeah, I would if I were an alien, I would do Alaska, I guess, or Hawaii. Hawaii would be cool. I'd probably choose Hawaii. It's a nicer place.
What do you mean nicer? If you're an alien trying to remain low key, I mean, Hawaii is a pretty popular tourist destination. You got planes coming in and out all the time. You got a lot of people living there compared to Alaska. It's quite different. All right. Getting lost in Nome. As Alaska, Land of the Lost article states, people vanish by accident and by design, by fluke of nature or quirk of circumstances, by foul play, misstep, and bad luck. As Newlik.com states, Nome is located 2,000 miles north of Bray's Point, sitting on the very edge of the continent. Hewlick.com erroneously implied that is because of Nome's isolation, wilderness, and vastness that it has experienced a rash of alien abductions. This was a theory that was grossly exploited by Universal Pictures for the movie The Fourth Kind. However, a more logical explanation being the mysterious disappearances in Nome between the 60s and 2004 is that Nome, being situated on a particularly remote edge of a state that is defined by its rugged, lonely vastness, is a place where there are many ways for people to disappear. Well, also, if you're an alien looking to abduct people, you would want some place where other things could be blamed for the disappearance so they wouldn't be onto you, especially if you're aliens with vast intelligence. So to say that it's more logical, that's kind of weird because without having more, again, the problem is always lack of information. Because if it turns out that aliens were responsible for at least a small portion of these disappearances, then how silly was it to write these things off? Condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance, of course. Okay, so because of that, there are many reasons the missing are never found. The odds are very good that none of those reasons have to do with aliens. Well, how would you know what the odds are without having all the information? Like when you're calculating odds for, let's say, a lottery winner, you know how many people bought a ticket, you know what the chances are of picking the numbers are, you know what the chances of winning are. So you have all the information so you can state the odds clearly. When you have very little information, how could you determine odds? So again, this article very fallacious, but we went a little bit on a sidetrack. But anyway, so it looks like the producers did a pretty good job of mixing and matching things to make it seem like this could be a legitimate story. So Nome, Alaska, of course, home to many UFO sightings. So they coupled that with a usual amount of missing people that is not found in near other cities in Alaska, coincidentally, or at least not to my knowledge. Somebody can chime in and correct that stat if there are other cities in Alaska that have a higher missing person population than Nome. But it seems like they mixed and matched, and there are hypnotherapy sessions that are recorded of alien abductions. So whether they were specific to the Nome case or not, it seemed like the producers really cashed in by mixing and matching real things in ufology to create the movie. Does that clear that up, Maxwell?
Yeah.
All right. So how did we get into that again? The eyes. This police officer's account is talking about the. Okay, so let's go back to this. This account is called "The Eyes That Watch." So this is from a tribal police department in Florida. While on midnight shift, I was patrolling this area and called an area check. My radio worked absolutely fine. Just then, that commercial for the movie The Fourth Kind played on my FM radio. I immediately became spooked. A couple of miles down the road, I called another check and got nothing but loud static. Since I was near the end of my check, I decided to turn around, and when I did, I froze. Tons and tons of eyes staring at me from the water, in the trees, and on the road. I couldn't tell whether they were alligators or whatnot, but I flew back east to familiar territory. Another officer who works with us said he was doing the same check and heard someone knock on the back window of his patrol car while he was stopped. He stepped out of the vehicle with his weapon drawn but saw absolutely nobody. I hate going out there. That one's kind of creepy. So, wait a second. So, tons and tons of eyes. So, not just from the water, not just from the tree area, but also from the road? So what are the chances that alligators or some kind of animals would just randomly congregate all around her and stare at her? That's a scene right out of a horror movie, is it not, Maxwell?
Yeah.
That's all you got?
Yeah.
Maxwell Army. Yeah, that's a pretty creepy one. I don't know what to make of that, but apparently it looks like this only happened to her once, maybe? So, I don't know. It's kind of weird. All right, let's move on. Number 5, last call. My old partner told me this one. Enjoy. Back in 87, an A7 Corsair crashed into the Ramada here in Indianapolis. The story was there was a Boy Scout troop staying in the hotel. One of the boys placed a call to his parents after the crash and said, "Dad, tell Mom I'm fine. Everything is all right, don't worry." And the line was disconnected. The parents were already watching the news and saw what was happening and drove to Indy to get their son. When they arrived, the chaplain from Wayne Fire broke the bad news that their son was killed in the crash. The father said there is no way because he spoke to his son after the crash on the phone. The chaplain explained their son was found in the lobby where the majority of the damage and fire took place. He was found by the payphones. Later, it was determined that a call came from a lobby phone 20 minutes after the plane struck the building. All right, that's really creepy though, because if he's found in the wreckage and it was a bad wreckage, so you could clearly tell that everybody died on impact, how was a call placed 20 minutes after the crash from the lobby phone? And then what? If he survived, he wandered back and climbed into the crash to die? And no thoughts, Maxwell?
No.
Good thing you're doing a podcast on this.
Yeah. Wait, repeat what happened?
Why didn't you just pay attention?
I did, but I can't recall.
This was a super short one. There's not much to recall. There was a plane crash, and the parents of one of the victims of the crash received a phone call from their son who's on the plane. In the phone call, reportedly, the son said, "Dad, tell mom I'm fine. Everything is all right. Don't worry." And the line was disconnected. The parents were watching the news while the father got the call. So they immediately drove to Indianapolis to get their son. When they arrived, the chaplain from Wayne Fire told them that the son was killed. That he was their son was found in the lobby where the majority of the damage and fire took place. He was found by the payphones. So it's unclear whether he was in the wreckage by the payphones or completely out of the wreckage by the payphone. But anyway, the call took place 20 minutes after the crash. So could he have survived the crash? So what I'm saying is, if the crash was a really bad crash and it was determined that everybody died on impact because that's the kind of crash it was, how could the son have walked to the payphones, made a call, and then either, if he didn't collapse right there, if the body was found more among the wreckage of the plane in the lobby, then that doesn't make any sense, because that would mean he would have placed the call and then climbed back into the wreckage. So that's twice that I went over this relatively short account. What do you got?
Gotcha. And all the timelines are legit. I mean, they all check out.
It said that it was determined that the call came from a lobby phone 20 minutes after the plane struck the building. I only have the information that I gave here. So you can ask me all the questions you want. I only have the information here, which I gave to you. That's all we have to work with. So if you want to make a commentary on if it was really corroborated or not, that's perfectly fine. But I gave you all the information that's available.
Okay, that's weird.
So I repeated all that just for that's weird.
Well, it's, I don't know. He probably turned into a ghost, picked up the phone, called up the parents, and said, "I'm okay," but he didn't know he was dead, and I came back. I don't know.
That is pretty creepy though, right? Like, let's say if you did die and then you're a ghost and you don't know that you're a ghost, so then you just go about your business as if you're not. I mean, that's pretty creepy, right?
Yeah.
And at which point, if you find out you're a ghost, do you die at that point, depending on the scenario?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Or is it some kind of sixth sense situation? All right.
Yeah.
Let's move on to case 6, the Shadow Man. I guess this will be a favorite of yours, Maxwell. By the way, if you haven't checked out our Shadow People podcast series, we have quite a few episodes going over Shadow People theories, and Shadow People accounts. So you can check those out on the channel. Okay, I was sitting in the flat of a hill monitoring traffic. It was about 2 to 3 a.m. Where I was sitting, it's a well-known spot where an unsolved murder victim was found about 26 years ago. No other officers would sit here, even though citizens are constantly doing 15 to 20 miles per hour over the limit in this area. As I was sitting there, I saw a shadow cross the back of my unit coming from the passenger side. Almost immediately afterwards, the shadow came up to the driver's side of my unit and then across the front. Mind you, it's completely dark in this area, and the only lighting around me is from the moon. Thinking the worst, I turn on all my lights to light up the area to see if I can see who or what is around me. Nothing. I figured it was time to leave that area. Once I got to a lighted area, I stopped and realized that my camera was recording from where I hit my emergency lights. I reviewed the footage and you can see where a figure starts from the driver front of my unit. Then for a half a second, the entire camera goes black, as if someone put their finger over the lens. Then it goes back to normal. Needless to say, I haven't sat back in that spot yet. So that's kind of weird. No thoughts, Maxwell?
No, I'm good.
Good thing you're doing a podcast, man. I can see why you're some people's favorite podcaster, because you always have the longest and most relevant stories to share on the podcast. This makes me think of how many police officers out there never report paranormal activity. Similar to how many pilots out there would have never reported UFO activity because they're afraid of the stigma, right?
Oh, definitely.
And other cops are probably much worse than other pilots, right? In the police locker room, how badly would they make fun of somebody who said there's a ghost banging on their cop car? They would never
Yeah.
hear the end of that.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next one, the haunted church. I used to work for a private police security firm as a patrol supervisor. On one of my patrol routes, we had a huge church that was also a private daycare and kindergarten. It was my responsibility to clear and secure the building every night between 3 and 4 a.m. Uh-oh, that's the witching hour. That's just asking for trouble. Due to recent instances of doors being found left open in the morning. In the early 1900s, the building was a schoolhouse, and supposedly a fire had killed several children trapped inside. I didn't know any of this prior to working for the company. I only lasted about a week on this route prior to requesting that the church be moved to earlier in the shift. Several extremely creepy things happened while assigned to the church. So this officer only lasted a week before wanting to do something about it, as opposed to that security guard who lasted over a year at the abandoned hospital. Would you last a week, or would you? Yeah, you said you'd be out there that first night, right?
Oh, definitely.
Okay, so several creepy things happened while assigned to the church. My first night there, I had just walked down the very long main classroom hallway to clear all of the rooms, and when I turned around to walk back up the hallway, there was a red balloon floating in the middle of the hallway that was definitely not there prior. In the old pastor's office, there was a lamp shaped like a lighthouse that sat on a table in a large window. When I would pull up to the church, the lamp would be the first thing I would see in the office window. It was always turned on. However, when I would go to lock the pastor's office from the inside, the lamp would always be off. When I would get back into the car to leave, the light would be back on again. No, that's gotta be the messing, because why else would it be that unless the ghost or paranormal entity was specifically messing with the person, right?
Yeah.
That's all you got?
Yeah, it's kind of messed up. Like, I don't know. It's kind of like a ghost is joking around. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like specifically picking that time. It's just, I mean, that's just, these entities must really like screwing with people. All right, one weekend, the church was having a bake sale, and the kitchen was full of plates of cookies and brownies, etc. There had been a note left on the door telling us, security, that we could help ourselves to anything in the kitchen, in parentheses, within reason. I cleared the kitchen and noticed a large plate of chocolate chip cookies. I continued past the plate to clear the rest of the kitchen, and when I went back to the plate of cookies, there were only 3 left, where there had once been at least a dozen or more. And I also had the usual phenomena of previously closed locked doors being found open just seconds after closing and locking them. Okay, seconds. I mean, that's crazy. In the other accounts you went over, it was like an hour, a day. I mean, this is seconds after closing and locking them. So they're clearly messing with this person, right? Another officer that filled in for me one evening quit the very next day because he reported that he was checking the main chapel. The pipe organ started playing itself. That would have been you, Maxwell, right? You would quit that first night.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, this is all kind of weird, but if these ghosts are children, I mean, children like to play around like that, right? It's almost like an in-your-face teasing kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty bizarre encounter. All right, let's go to number 8, the water tower. It's been a while, but I only have one. Get a call for an alarm at a new water tower they are building. Alarm company also has cameras on site, so when the alarm activated, so did the cameras. The alarm company advised that there were 2 teenagers observed going under a sign. I was already in the area, so I was on scene quickly. The alarm company stayed online and said they have not passed the camera again. A few more units get there and we are checking the site for the sign. Well, we find it and it's not a sign. It's a piece of construction equipment. And when you go under the sign, it leads to only one place, the entrance to the water tower. So we go inside and immediately hear people talking. We shine our lights toward the next landing and it stops. So we are giving commands and all that, but no response. We are considering climbing up there, but the ladder is being held on by a carabiner, and we can't figure out their harness system. We call one of the workers out, so it takes him a bit to get there. We're sitting there BSing inside the tower because it's cold and decide to turn our lights off. After a minute, the talking resumes, along with what sounds like someone walking or shuffling around. We shine a light up and it stops. We do it 3 or 4 times and it's the same thing. Guy finally gets there and goes up the ladder, checks the level and the next level and the actual bowl. No one was up there. So this is a more innocuous one. However, what jumps out at me is this is a new water tower they are building. So it's unclear whether this tower itself is the new one or it's an old one and they're building a new one next to it. We don't really know, or they're rebuilding. If it's a brand new one, isn't that uncommon to have ghosts at a brand new structure?
I don't know.
You don't know anything about hauntings, Maxwell? Never seen any movies? Usually it's the old haunted house, right? The one that's had murder. I mean, if you build a brand new house, unless it's on some kind of burial ground, don't hauntings usually happen at older houses where bad stuff happens?
Yeah, they probably built it on top of a cemetery or something.
But if they didn't, isn't that uncommon?
Very uncommon. They probably followed the new owners.
Oh, so more of a residual haunting of the company that owns the the water tower. That's an interesting theory, Maxwell. All right.
Oh, okay. Oh, we're talking about the tower. I forgot.
Oh man, Maxwell Army. All right, next one. 9, a guardian angel. A traffic guy at my agency was catching up to a DUI suspect, no lights or sirens. The suspect was easily 300 to 400 yards ahead at, so this is 3:30 a.m. Uh-oh, the witching hour, on a very long stretch of semi-rural road. The
What does
left
that mean? What does that mean when you like witching hour? I don't get it.
The witching hour is usually viewed as 3 a.m. or between 3 to 4 a.m.
Wait, what? Why is that?
because that's when witch activities is the highest. Supposedly that's a time of I mean it's mentioned a lot in the occult. It's some kind of spiritual time when the gateways between worlds are open. You never heard about that?
Wait, is that why it's like bad to sleep at 3 a.m. or something?
Wait, what are you talking about? Everybody's asleep at 3 a.m.
I mean, going to sleep at 3 a.m.
So, I mean, we could do a podcast on this in the occult. Witching hour it's been kind of reattributed to the midnight hour, but originally it was 3 a.m. Some people even say it's between midnight and 2 a.m., but I've seen 3 a.m. It's also been known as the devil's hour. And so that's more of yeah, it's usually associated with 3 a.m. It kind of got remanufactured into some kind of into midnight just because it sounds better. Middle night, middle of the night, the midnight hour. But the witching hour, the devil's hour, was officially 3 a.m., not midnight. Some people actually believe it's a mockery of the hour of Christ's death because supposedly Christ died on the cross at 3 p.m. So that would be the opposite of something godly or Christ-like at 3 a.m. at night. But we'll do a dedicated podcast on that regarding the occult witching hour. But what was your point? Oh, because I said 3. This is 3:30 a.m. Okay, the left side of the street was lit by streetlights, and the right side was dark. Both cars were moving fast, about 80 miles per hour or so. You following, Maxwell? I'm going to have to repeat this 2 or 3 more times.
Wait, what happened?
I'm giving another account of a police encounter with the paranormal, and you don't seem to be paying attention.
So wait, what happened?
A traffic officer was chasing a DUI suspect without his lights or sirens. This is
Oh, okay.
3:30 a.m., a long stretch of semi-rural road. The left side of the street was lit by streetlights, the right side is dark. Both cars are moving at about 80 miles per hour. His dash cam video showed the suspect vehicle lose something from its rear, and it turned out it was the suspect's rear bumper. After the bumper stopped tumbling, the video showed a black figure dart into the roadway from the left, the side lit by streetlights. Pick up or move the bumper, then dart to the right side of the road where it was dark. The video showed nothing on the right side of the roadway when the officer drove by the area. The officer did not see this occur at the time, but instead when he reviewed his video in the car to find out where the suspect lost his bumper. The dark figure had no reflecting clothing on, as most joggers, dog walkers do in the area, and was definitely in the right place at the right time, as the officer most likely would have hit the bumper due to his speed and possibly crash. So this is supposedly some kind of ghost or shadow person looking out for the safety of an officer chasing a DUI suspect. So did you follow all that, Maxwell? I'll say it again.
Yeah, I followed that actually. That's weird.
Oh, that's amazing.
I mean, it's weird that I followed it.
I know, that's why I said that's amazing.
Yeah, but it's probably because you said like, actually, it was your second time. Wait, it was your second time?
For the second time, I redid just the intro. I only said what happened with the bumper.
That shit was interesting. So that the shadow person freaking took out the bumper.
In a
so the
split
officer,
second. In a split
yeah.
second, so that the officer didn't even notice while it happened and only saw it on the dash cam.
Wait, I gotta see this. We should we could search that, right? It's probably on YouTube or something.
I don't know. There's no name. These don't have the names of officers because I guess they don't want to be known.
I'll look that up later. Shadow person saves cop from tumbling to death.
From bumper? From suspect losing, from DUI suspect losing bumper?
Shadow takes out bumper to save officer.
All right. Let's go to the last one here, the fallen officer. I wasn't present for this, but heard this from coworkers. It was the second week of April a few years ago. Around 2 a.m., a young junior female officer was coming off shift and walking to the locker rooms past an empty admin area. At that time of night, the office is all cleared out and can be eerie. She saw an older male officer standing there that she didn't know and said hello as she walked by. He ignored her, and when she looked back over her shoulder, he was gone. Of course, she was creeped out, but told herself she was just tired and imagining things. A couple days went by, and she saw a picture of the same officer she had seen that night posted on a wall of fallen officers. That officer had killed himself with his service weapon a couple of years earlier, during the second week of April. He used to have a desk near where she saw him. I didn't know him very well, as we have a large department and we didn't work in the same areas. In all of my dealings with him, he was very talented and skilled at his job and had a clear passion for it. It was a big loss. There's another one watching over us. So a fairly innocuous tale, but just there seem to be a lot of these stories, not just with police officers, but if you look at all of these accounts of ghosts, it seems like people see a ghost, but you know what's weird? Sometimes it's reoccurring, but sometimes it's not. Do you think I just came up with a new theory now? Are you ready, Maxwell? Are you ready for a mind shock?
Yeah.
In cases of recurring hauntings or visitations by somebody, by a ghost, what happens, like this woman, this female officer that saw this ghost, as soon as she saw his picture as a fallen officer, did she never see him again? Because something happened in her brain, either through the reticular activating system or whatever, some kind of a weird byproduct of that, where if she doesn't believe in ghosts, she wouldn't be able to see him now that she knows that he was dead. Whereas before she knew he was dead, like the brain didn't close off as much, so it didn't filter it out. Because what if he's there all the time on the second week of April, but everybody who knows he's dead can't see him? So only people who don't know that he's dead would be able to see him.
That's interesting.
And what if it's the same for all of these ghost sightings or hauntings or whatever? Once someone finds out that someone is dead, I mean, everybody's different. Everybody has different belief systems. But if it's some kind of a weird function in the brain where you find out that person is dead, so you couldn't have seen them because you don't believe in ghosts, then you'll never see them again because it closes your ability to see them. For the same reason maybe children or animals can pick up ghost or paranormal activities more so than adults, because adults who don't believe, they're not open to seeing that part of reality. So because they don't believe, they can't see what's right in front of them, whereas children or animals could. No thoughts on my theory, Maxwell Powers?
That's a good theory.
All right, let's go over a couple of more police encounters with the supernatural. This is an article written by Brent Swancer on mysteriousuniverse.org, January 6, 2017. The job of a police officer is a noble profession, to be sure. They are here to serve and protect, to deal with the dangers that lurk in the shadows and beyond the corner, and to keep us safe from the often violent world we live in. Yet do these officers of the law sometimes have to deal with dangers not only from our own world, but those from beyond the veil of our reality? Do they sometimes have brushes with the unexplained and the paranormal? Apparently, yes, they do. Police officers surely must see some strange things on their patrols, but nothing quite as strange as some of the reports that have come in over the years of cops who have apparently had encounters with something they cannot explain, and possibly direct contact with entities beyond the barrier that separates the world of the living with the world of the dead. Here we will look at some reports of high strangeness that have allegedly been made by various individuals within the law enforcement community, and which show us that this profession can be far weirder and more frightening than one might guess. There is actually a surprising vast number of paranormal encounters reported by law enforcement, so many that it is hard to even know where to begin. One official police report contains a very strange story indeed. In one case, an unidentified officer who was called to a residence on a call referred to as a 5150, which is assigned to a psychiatric problem of some kind. When the officer arrived, an elderly woman who turned out to be the homeowner greeted him to tell him that her son had taken drugs and was convinced that when he entered his room, he could see an old man in a World War II uniform hanging on a noose from the ceiling. When the officer spoke to the son directly, the strung out man claimed that he had been told not to enter the room by the spirit dwelling within, because it was the angry spirit's father who was supposedly hanging from the ceiling. The officer entered the room and found no body hanging from the ceiling by a noose as claimed, and it was at that time that a veteran officer purportedly arrived on the scene who told the other officer that he had been called to that very same residence years before to investigate a case of an older man who had hung himself there in that exact same bedroom. Apparently, the victim had been a World War II veteran and had fully decked himself out in his old uniform before ending his own life on the noose. I mean, is this like the movie The Scent of a Woman? What was that? With Al Pacino, where he tries to kill himself in uniform. Have you seen that one?
Yeah, I saw that one.
I mean, he was going to shoot himself in uniform, right? Because that's they when they commit suicide, they do it in uniform. Apparently, is that like a
Yeah,
veteran
a
thing?
lot of people do that.
It was certainly unsettling for the younger officer who had no knowledge at all of such a depressing past case and began to wonder if there was something strange at work on the premises. Perhaps something not of this world. So okay, we've talked about this before. Taking drugs can alter your brain waves, obviously. So does that make you in tune with the paranormal or able to see the paranormal, whereas someone who's not under some kind of influence cannot see? So again, the illogical will write off any kind of paranormal reported by a drug user as, oh, well, they're on drugs, they can't be trusted. I mean, that might be true, but that they can't be trusted. I mean, science is skepticism, but we don't know for sure, right? So if drugs really do open up some portals and enable you to see the paranormal, enable you to see more of reality or thin the veil, so you'd be able to see that, that would increase the chances. Same thing we talked about with demonic possessions and demonic influence. If you're a drug addict and that has weakened your spirit to a certain point where you could be exploited by some of these demonic entities, does that increase or decrease the chances? Skeptics of demons or the paranormal, they never want to answer any kind of logical questions like that. But what do you make of this case? Because the other thing that I noticed that was really, really unique here is that the strung out man claimed that he had been told not to enter the room by the spirit dwelling within because it's the angry spirit's father who's hanging from the ceiling. So this isn't the spirit that's hanging. So the son of the spirit, who's also a spirit, is telling the drug user not to enter. I can't recall any other paranormal case like this. Can you, Maxwell?
Yeah, that's interesting. But why was I'm wondering why the kid would be angry.
Because his father committed suicide?
It's kind of weird. So are they seeing both entities? Like,
The strung out user, apparently, right? Because how else? He said he could see an old man in a World War II uniform hanging on a noose from the ceiling. When the officer spoke to the son directly, the strung out man claimed he had been told not to enter the room by the spirit dwelling within because it was the angry spirit's father who was supposedly hanging from the ceiling. So the elderly woman said that the son had taken drugs and was convinced that when he entered the room, he could see an old man in a World War II uniform hanging on a noose from the ceiling. So that's what the mother reported, or an elderly woman. Maybe she was his grandmother, who knows. But when the officer is speaking to the son directly, I guess the son doesn't want to go in the room because there's also an angry spirit there in addition to the ghost hanging from the noose.
that's crazy.
Yeah. Very bizarre. All right, let's go to the next one. Just as spooky as a report from a police officer from rural Nebraska in the 1990s. The officer claimed that he was patrolling an area of derelict, abandoned buildings where copper thieves were known to be at work in the middle of winter, with snow blanketing the scene everywhere. One house in particular was known for suspicious activity, and the officer passed by the house at 7 p.m. to discover nothing unusual. However, when he passed by again, he noticed that the back door was open even though it had not been opened before, and there were additionally no footprints in the film of snow on the ground. Sensing that something weird was going on, the officer then allegedly called for backup and went in to investigate. So this is another added edge here. This is another added variable because in these other cases of abandoned buildings or haunted houses, you can theoretically say that it could be a kid that snuck in and is playing tricks, right? If they're opening or closing doors or putting on or taking off lights. But now if you have a cover of snow and doors are opening and closing and there are no footprints in the snow for people to come and go, what do you think about that, Maxwell?
So that's more likely to be more phenomena or paranormal.
When the officer arrived at the door, it was obvious that there were not only absolutely no footprints in the snow, but none in the copious amount of dust strewn on the floor of the decrepit abandoned house either. Indeed, it looked for all appearances to have not been touched in years. Thinking that the wind must have merely blown the door open, the officer then reported a loud bang coming from upstairs, followed by the eerie sound of children laughing and a ruckus of various bumps, scrapes, and thuds. The officer at this point was convinced that there were some kids up there goofing around, and he ordered them to come out. When there was no response, the policeman made his way through the piles of broken furniture and strewn about debris towards the stairs, all the while calling out to the trespassers without effect, which made him begin to think it was maybe just an animal rummaging about, despite the fact that he was quite sure he had heard the distinct sound of laughter. When the officer reached the second floor, he claims that all of the thuds, bangs, and laughter abruptly went silent. What happened next was decidedly odd, as the officer himself says this. As I get to the top of the stairs, I hear a thump in the bedroom to the left. I carefully peek around the door, and it's an empty room with a small pile of plaster and wood debris in the middle. No kidding, sitting on top of the pile of debris was a page torn out of a child's book with a picture of a police officer on it. The hair stood up on the back of my neck. I got out of that room, quickly cleared the other rooms upstairs, and got the expletive out of there. Told dispatch nobody was in the house, locked the back door, and never went back in there again. Everybody's waiting with bated breath for your thoughts, Maxwell.
So she saw some like diary or some shit, and then a cop's picture was there, and then she decided to leave.
All right, there's no diary. I don't know where you got the idea that the officer was a female.
Yeah, I lost track.
I don't know why you would assume he was a female. So it said policeman, and there's no diary. It was a children's book, and ripped out of the book was a picture of a police officer. There was a page torn out of a book. It actually doesn't say there was a book of any kind. It was a picture torn out from a children's book. So I guess some kind of child's book. And there was a police officer picture torn out of a page of the book on top of the pile. No other activity, no footprints in any of the dust, no footprints in the snow outside of the house. So this is clearly a case of somebody messing with the officer, right? Because not only, so this can't be a case of simply a window into another dimension or some kind of recorded activity at a location that just keeps replaying in the energy field, because this is clearly a case where an entity knows that a police officer is coming and they want to let the officer know that they know. Do you find that creepy, Maxwell? No thoughts? You know we're doing a podcast, right?
Yeah, I'm still not following.
Oh man, Maxwell Army. There's an abandoned house. The officer drives by the house, everything's fine. When he drives back the second time, the back door's open, but there's no footprints in the snow. When he goes in the house, there's a lot of dust, and there's no footprints in the dust either. He hears laughing and rummaging upstairs. So he goes upstairs. He goes into a room, and there's nothing in the room except a pile of debris. On top of the pile is a page with a picture of a policeman torn out of some kind of children's book. Just that page with the policeman. You don't follow that, Maxwell. I summed it up in like one sentence.
But the policeman that was looking at that was the police officer in the book.
Wait, what are you talking about? It's just a picture of a police officer. You've
Yeah,
never
well,
seen a children. You've never seen a children's book. They have pictures like this is a policeman. This is a fireman. This is the mailman. Yeah, this they just
Oh,
tore.
okay. So like it's like a message to the police officer that saw that.
Well, I don't know. That's why we're discussing this on a podcast. This is the only. How would we know whether it was a message or not? All we can do is discuss.
Well, I'm thinking that's what the
What I said is this. So sometimes people explain paranormal or ghost activity as some kind of energy or some kind of an imprint in the space-time continuum in a specific location. So that's why sometimes ghosts go through the same actions. So it's either a ghost wandering somewhere or doing a specific task, and they either do it every night or they do it on the anniversary or whatever it is. They just do the same thing as if nobody else is there. So this could not be explained as that, because clearly there's some kind of an entity, unless you want to be a really hardcore coincidence theorist and say there just happened to be a page torn out of a children's book on top of a pile of rubble or debris and nothing else in the room for a police officer to discover. I mean, I guess that's a possibility, but the officer said he heard laughter and scuffling or rummaging about like kids playing. So I guess you could say it was just the kids messing with the officer saying that they can see him, but he can't see them, right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I don't know. Comes out of a. It looks like a good movie scene, definitely.
Yeah, very disturbing and quite a unique case. I don't know if I've heard of a case quite like that. Okay, let's continue on. Creepy cases like this are numerous. Another officer was called to a residence out in a remote rural area in Wyoming at 11 p.m. on a suspicious activity call. Upon arrival, the officer and his partner were told that there was some frantic screaming coming from a nearby creek, which they heard for themselves several moments later. The unearthly screams sounded like they were coming from a woman who was in severe distress and terror, and the police officers promptly went to investigate. As they drew closer, the screams apparently got even more desperate and laden with sheer, unadulterated horror, growing louder and louder to the point that it seemed for sure that there was some sort of brutal crime taking place. When the officers approached the location from where the screams were thought to have uttered forth, they found absolutely nothing out of the ordinary. Even after they did a complete search of the vicinity and cried out to whoever had been responsible or the target of the barbarity. The baffled officers then started heading back to the house, and it was then that another scream pierced out from behind them even closer than before. Another sweeping search turned up nothing at all, just utter silence. The policemen then apparently searched around yet again with their flashlights and heard another extremely loud scream that lasted for around 30 seconds. So 30 seconds is a long time, Maxwell. If someone's screaming for 30 seconds, do you think you would mistake that scream for some kind of animal noise or something other than a human screaming for their life?
um, yeah, 30 seconds. You said.
The latest extremely loud scream was 30 seconds, yes, in addition to all the other screams.
Yeah, then you can start figuring it out because like initially sometimes like a whistle from a truck or something can sound like a human screaming, but
If you're a police officer who's routinely investigated crimes of people screaming, I think you would probably know, right? I mean, I don't know.
no, not really. It takes about 30 seconds. It takes a few seconds because like your brain goes on alert and it kind of
Yeah, but
panics.
if you were paying attention, they're here for several minutes tracking screams and they're checking out the area with screams and they're drawing closer to the screams. The screams are described as sheer unadulterated horror that sounds exactly like a brutal crime taking place.
Okay, this then yeah.
So this goes on for a while, then they search the area, then there's silence. Then as they walk away, there's a 30-second scream. Then there's no sign of anyone after several intensive searches. The officers are forced back to the home and tell the family that they should call if they hear the same thing again before leaving. Oddly, the night had been inexplicably silent other than the screams, which ceased as abruptly as they had started. One of the officers at the scene would say this of the bizarre incident: I still don't know what it was. As an avid outdoorsman, I know no animal makes a cry like that, especially one that can move stealthily without being spotted by flashlights. Something else that weirded me out was that it was completely silent while the screams were happening. During summer in Wyoming, there is always some type of ambient animal sounds: frogs croaking, crickets chirping, owls hooting, coyotes howling, etc. But there was nothing until we were leaving and the screams had stopped. Then a frog started croaking. It gives me the creeps just thinking about it still. So basically, during these screams, all animals and ambient noise, insect noise, everything completely turned dead silent so that everybody could hear the screams. And then when the screams stopped, the ambient noise resumed. No thoughts, Maxwell?
Nah.
All right, let's go to the next one. Another sinister tale comes from a former cop on a military base who was tasked with working the night shift. Because in an article like this, of course he was. On this base, as on most, nearly every building was rigged with alarms, which were constantly monitored. If an alarm went off, the cops could go and snoop around to see who or what had set it off, requesting entry into the building if they thought it was warranted. The witness in this particular case claims that he was on patrol one night when there was an alarm tripped at the base's elementary school. The patrol dutifully went there, searched the entire perimeter, and found the building to be totally secure. A false alarm. They continued on, and around 20 minutes later, the alarm was sounded at the very same location they had just checked not long before. Now things were getting interesting. The patrol arrived at the building once again to find the door to the boiler room in the basement open, which it definitely had not been before. Thinking that there was perhaps an intruder, they checked it and found no one there. They left and got another alarm from the same location around 15 minutes after that. The frustrated patrol headed back and allegedly still found the premises to be secure, so they decided this time to stake it out to see if there was some prankster coming in to set off the alarm by pulling on the doors. The two officers sat there and waited to see what would happen, and for a while nothing did. But then the alarm inexplicably went off again as they were sitting there. At this point, they radioed in for the building custodian to actually let them inside the building, after which they systematically searched every classroom, room, and hall in the building. They saw nothing unusual until they noticed a maintenance door open with the lights on in the tiny room beyond. What happened next can be described by the witness himself. We walk down there and look in. No one's in it, and that door is locked when it closes. We look in there and we find a single footprint of a bare foot made of water. Left foot as a recall of a small child. Freaked the living hell out of us because no one reported a missing child and the entire building was clear and still locked up. No one left, no one entered, and we checked every inch of that damn place. Literally a 3-hour deep sweep, including ceiling tiles. Freaked the ever-loving expletive out of us, and to this day, my partner refuses to go into that school. Speaking of which, schools are really expletive spooky when they're empty. So that's an interesting one, right? There's only a single footprint, like a wet left foot, like the wet footprint of a child, but just one, and no other ones. What do you think, Maxwell? What do you got? And keep in mind, they did a 3-hour sweep of the entire place, including looking at ceiling tiles.
I got nothing.
Good thing you're doing a podcast. People want to hear your thoughts and analyses, Maxwell.
I lost track.
I just recapped it all in the last 30 seconds. They did a sweep of the whole school, 3-hour sweep, including ceiling tiles. And the only thing they found in one room was a single wet footprint of a child. Just one.
That's weird.
Yeah. So alarms constantly going off. Nobody could have set them off. And just a single footprint. That's like beyond weird, because in some cases they find a few footprints, but then they come from and lead to nowhere. But this is just one footprint. It's kind of weird. And if it was wet, like recently wet, that means it probably would have evaporated in another hour or two or whatever. And how did it get there? So it's kind of no explanations, Maxwell?
That's weird.
I know. That's why
Okay,
we don't.
so what happened after that?
They didn't say. They said this guy said he never went back to that place.
I don't blame him.
Okay. One police officer made the report that he had received a call from an elderly lady who insisted that there was a young girl running around in her yard at night, perhaps up to no good. When the officer arrived, the weather had taken a turn for the worst, and it had started raining heavily, with thunder echoing over the horizon. Nevertheless, he made his way to the yard and shone his flashlight out there into the rainy black, announcing that he was the police and that the intruder had better come out. There was no response. When he came back in, the visibly shaken elderly lady greeted him with a panicked She's inside the house. Soon after, the cop saw a girl of about 13 years of age run from one side of the house to the other. He told her to freeze, yet when he approached her, he claims that she disappeared into thin air. You still following, Maxwell?
Something disappeared into thin air.
Man, how do you lose it that fast?
Wait, is it a girl or something?
Yes, a 13-year-old girl. What are you doing while I'm reading this?
I'm trying to follow.
So someone's running around in the yard. The cop checks it out. There's nobody. The elderly woman who made this who called him, she says she's inside the house. So the cop goes inside the house, and upon approaching her, she disappears into thin air. Writing it all off as a mere trick of shadow and light, the officer continued to tell the girl to stay where she was, but the elderly woman then shouted out that the girl was now in the yard again. The baffled police officer was stumped as to how the girl could have possibly gone by him undetected to get back outside again, but looking outside, he saw that she was indeed standing there in the rain. When he went out to finally apprehend the mischief maker, he claimed that she was once again nowhere to be seen, and a thorough check of every inch of the yard turned up nothing. With no perpetrator in sight, he told the old lady to calm down and to call if the strange girl happened to reappear again. A few months later, the officer found out that the old lady had died and that new people had moved in, after which calls began to come in from the new tenants, claiming that a young girl around 13 years old was running around their backyard or even in their house. Any thoughts, Maxwell?
Yeah, that's creepy as hell. But like, they didn't report it as a transparent figure. It's just like a normal kid.
Pretty much. So, yeah, pretty much. From this officer's report, they couldn't tell that it wasn't a physical person until she disappeared right in front of them. You know what's weird? All of the illogical skeptics, they claim that all these countless people are just hallucinating or they just want attention. I mean, is that their position? Because we've gone over this a number of times on various podcasts because what motivations do like in certain cases you could go ad hominem and you might be justified to a certain degree because if someone really wants attention and they just have nothing better to do, but we're talking families, business professionals who have better things to do than to waste their time making fake police calls and all these things. What motivations do all these people have to lie? I mean, I would say 90% of all of these reports and cases, these people are genuinely reporting what they believe to be happening.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And what motivations do any of these police officers have to lie about any of this?
I mean, it's exactly the opposite. I mean, they could lose a lot.
Well, that's why I'm saying how many unreported paranormal events are there out there that we'll never know about because police officers were too scared to report them or they didn't want the stigma.
Yeah, definitely. I would say a lot of them.
In some cases, rather than just generally spooking everyone, ghosts seem to be trying to help law enforcement. In the early 1980s, some officers from the Oklahoma City Police Department apparently were called to a residence whose occupants had complained of weird paranormal activity. When the officers arrived, the homeowners were reportedly all out on the front lawn as loud bangs and the sounds of shattering glass emanated from within the home. They claimed that the activity had started from nowhere and that it was all being done by an unseen presence. Thinking that there was a violent intruder inside, a canine police dog was unleashed to go scout it out, but it would purportedly refuse to go anywhere near the residence, instead, circling, growling, and whining outside. When the ruckus from inside the house died down, some officers ventured within to check things out and found that although the interior had been totally wrecked by someone, no one was in fact there. A complete search of the house and the area turned up not a single clue that anyone other than the family themselves had ever been there. So these police officers stood on the lawn with the homeowners while the inside of the house was completely trashed, and the dog would not go inside. And then they searched the house, nobody went in, and the house is completely wrecked. What do you make of that case, Maxwell?
I don't know.
That's all you got?
I got nothing.
Maxwell. Another creepy tale involves an Oregon state trooper who was dispatched to answer a call concerning a man with a gun to a woman's head. When the officer and his partner arrived, a woman was cowering and crying, groaning over and over again, "He shot me, he shot me." Considering the woman had no apparent visible injuries, the officers informed her that she had actually not been shot and that she was okay. The mysterious woman gave her name but refused a ride in the patrol car and wished to remain where she was, so they had no choice but to leave her there. Back at the station, one of the officers looked up the woman's name and learned that someone with the very same name had been shot and killed by her husband years earlier, and that the suspect had never been apprehended. You weirded out yet, Maxwell?
Yeah. Uh,
That was a short one. How did you not follow that? Someone called in an Oregon state trooper that there was a man with a gun to a woman's head. The officer
I got that part.
the officer and the partner arrived, and it was just the woman at the time there, and she kept saying, he shot me," but she didn't have any actual injuries. And she did not want to ride in the patrol car or go to the station, so they left her there. When they got back to the station, they looked up her name, and someone with her name had been shot and killed by her husband years earlier, and he had never been apprehended.
That's messed up. Wait, so these officers actually made contact with a physical person. That's not even like a. That's so weird. Like they actually.
It doesn't say whether they touched her or not, but they walked up to her. I mean, I'm assuming. I mean, I don't know. Would they touch her? Normally, don't they give blankets to people in shock? Wouldn't they have an ambulance also sent out? I mean, well, this is the early. Well, actually, let's see here. This says it's the. Actually, it does not have a date here, so we don't know how long ago this was. But normal protocol would probably be have some kind of EMS personnel, right? Because she might be in shock or whatnot. They just left her there, though.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep going. It was odd enough as it is, but things would get even weirder and more ominous 2 years later. The same officer from that original call was out on patrol when he apparently got yet another call of a man with a gun to a woman's head. Spookily, at the same location he had once been before. When he arrived, he found the same woman standing there, and she allegedly pointed to the home and said, "There. He's in there." When the officer entered, he apparently found a man on the ground with his hands up. The man was brought in, and when his name was run through the databases, it turned out to be the same name of the very husband who was wanted for the murder of the woman whose name had turned up 2 years before. The spooked police officer would say of the case, "Was it just luck that we should be there when he was there? Or was it a ghost wanting justice for her murder?" To this day, it still creeps me out to think about it. I hope she's finally at peace. What do you make of that, Patrick?
That's the most fucked up story I've ever heard. I mean, it's actually not actually fucked up, but like kind of it's almost like a happy ending.
Well, what's kind of weird is it normal? I guess it is for certain murderers to return not only to the scene of the crime, but after a certain period of time, he's going to return and live back in that same house. Is that weird? I don't know. Is that weird?
Wait, yeah, but he just entered to check out the place, right? I mean, the place is empty, right, or no?
I don't know. It doesn't say.
I'm thinking like people who commit crimes that kind of go back to their place of murder.
That's usually serial killers, though. In crimes of passion, do they really do that? Like if a husband or a boyfriend in a crime of passion killed his wife or girlfriend, he would get out of Dodge and never come back, right? He's not like a serial killer who's gonna, I mean, I don't know, unless he is also a serial killer, but usually it's serial killers that return to the scene of the crime, right? And this is years and years after the fact. So he waited till everything died down and then he went back to live in the same house he lived in before. Is that kind of weird? Also, who's making these reports of a man with a gun to a woman's head? Is it neighbors seeing ghosts? Or is it the ghost who's calling in the call? Or who's I mean, we don't know. I don't think they should have that information on who made the calls, but we don't have that right here. But yeah, that's weird, right?
Yeah, that is weird. I'm thinking it's like neighbors, because I mean, ghosts. I don't know. I could be wrong. Ghosts can't really touch physical things.
Maxwell wrong. Maxwell is never wrong. That's why we have a Maxwell army. This would not be the only case of an apparent ghost helping police out. Another officer reported pulling over a man for speeding. As the policeman was getting out of the car, he reported that he heard the passenger door of his vehicle close and turned to realize there was a female police officer calmly sitting there in the car. Since he had not called for backup and there was no other patrol cars around, the whole thing was immediately strange, and the officer returned to his vehicle to see who this stranger was. He claimed that when he approached the policewoman, she told him he has a gun by the seat, before vanishing into thin air right before his eyes. The cop warily approached the car he had pulled over with extra caution and arrested the man, after which he discovered that there was indeed a gun by the seat, just as the ghostly woman had warned. Spookier still, the man was found to be wanted for the murder of a policewoman 20 years earlier. Did you follow that, Maxwell?
Yeah, I actually followed that one. That's crazy. So, like, I'm curious. That's crazy. A lot of these reports, like, they don't mention that the the entity that they see, they're not transparent. They don't even mention that. So they see actually a physical person.
Yes, disappear directly in front.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
they appear.
They don't mention any transparency or anything.
No, they do not. That's why they're so shocked when the person disappears in front of them. If the person had been transparent, there'd be a lot less shocked, right? If they just randomly disappeared.
Yeah.
No, they're seeing a ghost. But a similarly helpful ghost apparently called out to police who were on the scene of a car that had crashed upside down into a river after careening into a cement barrier in 2015. This vehicle had carried 25-year-old Jennifer Grosbeck and her 18-month-old daughter. The crash has been reported by a fisherman an estimated full 14 hours after it had occurred, and authorities were not expecting that they would find anyone alive at the scene when they finally arrived. When officers saw an arm waving about in the water through the window of the mostly submerged car, they nevertheless went through effort to see if anyone had perhaps lived. And it was at this point that all present could clearly see a woman's voice calling out for help. The startled officers rushed to save the woman, who they thought had survived, only to find her very dead, waterlogged body lodged within the vehicle. Although the mother was obviously dead, they noticed that the baby was still alive, managing to escape a watery grave by being suspended from the ceiling in an air pocket out of the cold water. Although the baby was unconscious, the police were able to speedily get her to a hospital where she was able to make a complete recovery. Officers who were present were baffled by the clear woman's voice they had heard and credited it with helping them get to the baby in time to save her life. Thoughts, Maxwell?
I lost track. I just remember she got back in time to save the baby's life.
Wait, what did you just say?
Some girl got back to her a baby to save her life or something.
No.
So someone just came back in time to save someone's life.
No.
What the hell happened?
So well, maybe you should pay attention so you would know, Maxwell. Jennifer Grossbeck and her 18-month-old daughter, there was a crash. Okay, so apparently this is in some location that's not frequently traveled because the crash was reported by a fisherman. This was 14 hours after the crash had occurred. So everyone assumed that anyone in the crash would be dead. This was a car crashed upside down into a river after it went through a cement barrier. This is 2015, it's pretty recent. So one of the first officers saw an arm waving in the water through the window of the mostly submerged car. And there was a woman's voice calling for help. When they got to the car, the woman was dead. But the baby was alive because the baby was somehow being suspended from the ceiling in an air pocket. But the baby was unconscious, but they saved the baby. Did you follow that, or do I have to say it 10 more times?
Gotcha. The lady died. The baby survived because there was an air pocket in the car.
But somehow the baby was being held up in the air pocket. That's what it says. And the officer said they heard they saw an arm waving and they heard voices. So was it the ghost of the mother trying to get the police there quicker to save the baby? No thoughts, Maxwell?
I don't really know.
The medical examiner ruled that Grossbeck had died as a result of blunt force injury of the head. So I guess that means she died on impact. So how could she have been talking and waving 14 hours later for the police to come? No thoughts at all, Maxwell?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that detail with the arm waving and stuff.
And the voice, a woman's voice.
So she died and made a ghost of herself like really quick to save the baby.
And so I found an article about this. It is still unclear how she managed to survive hanging upside down in her car seat for 14 hours with no food or water. The temperatures were near freezing throughout the night and morning.
This is for the kid?
Yeah. Well, it's a baby, 18-month-old baby.
That's crazy. It's only like 14 hours though, right? It wasn't like 3 days or anything.
Yeah, but 14 hours is a lot for a baby.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I wasn't arguing that, but just like I don't know. I thought for some never mind.
Anyway, some of this ghostly assistance apparently comes from phone calls. One police dispatcher claimed that he received a call from a landline that had turned out to be nothing but a static drone on the other end, and the same creepy call came in 2 more times after that before he finally called in a patrol car to go check out the location. According to the story, the cops arrived at the secluded rural residence to find a dead body that had apparently been there, festering and rotting away for 5 months. The remote house was oddly found to have no working utilities or electricity of any kind, and the phone was out of commission, so there was no way a call could have been made to dispatch from there. But if it hadn't, the body may have likely never been discovered. There are numerous other reports of the weird and the paranormal from law enforcement officers floating around out there, and we have just only looked at a selection of some of the creepiest. What in the world is going on with these cases? Is there any truth to this, or are these police officers just as prone to being spooked and telling tall tales as anybody else? Regardless of whether any of these cases ever really happened or not, they are certainly creepy nevertheless, and if true, show that in addition to protecting citizens from thieves, killers, and the dregs of our own reality, they may sometimes have to deal with forces from beyond it as well. We talked about this before, too, about how if police departments had a special unit for paranormal cases, they could investigate these properly without the stigma of, because if they're already a paranormal team, not saying paranormal is true or not, but their job is to investigate the paranormal objectively, neutrally, scientifically, maybe there would be a lot more evidence of the paranormal. What do you think?
Yeah.
Maxwell Army. Any final thoughts on police officer encounters with the paranormal?
They were very interesting.
Yes, they were. Very interesting and bizarre. And especially when there's when there's video footage or multiple officers on scene, it's quite difficult to just write it off as nothing, like the cognitive dissonant and dogmatic like to do. But plenty more to come in the realm of the paranormal on MindShock. Thank you for joining us for another edition of the MindShock podcast. If you like the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications. If you like the podcast, hit the like button. Feel free to share it across social media platforms. Any questions, comments, thoughts, suggestions, your own experiences, leave them in the comments section. You could also check us out on Reddit, Twitter, and Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case or topic requests. And you can even request your favorite podcasters to cover certain topics. Maxwell is, of course, a fan favorite.
You should do an interview on me or something.
That would probably be pretty cool. People would probably want to listen to that. Maxwell's biography. Make sure to like and follow our Facebook page as well for exclusive updates. This is Bruce McGuire signing off.
And Maxwell Powers.
We'll catch you guys next time.